really interesting case I wanted to touch on here has to do with a couple of influencers. There's an influencer, Sydney Nicole Gifford. She's operating through an LLC called Sydney Nicole LLC. And she's the plaintiff, and she sued, or her company sued, someone named Alyssa Shiel. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Alyssa Shiel LLC, and her as an individual. And it's interesting because the allegations made in the complaint are that the postings on Instagram, TikTok, on other social media sites are too similar. That Alyssa did not use Sydney's name, but she made videos and made content that are very similar to the content that Sydney was creating, and doing it in a way where she was, following her, allegedly following her postings with her own postings that matched, potentially, at least the allegation is, to create confusion. And the way that, many of these algorithms work, if you're looking at one type of content and the algorithms want to show you similar content, and hypothetically, the more similar it is, the more likely it is to show up in the feed. If someone's following Sydney, they may say, you may also like this information from Alyssa. And the allegations are that Sydney, after Alyssa started this, I'm going to say allegedly. Let's assume everything is alleged here, right? I don't want anyone coming after me. I'm not going to say allegedly 100 times. Everything is alleged, as in the complaint. Was that Alyssa, her actions and her social media posting that was very similar, deprived Sydney of income. That there was a very significant drop in her income, in her affiliate revenue, in her advertising revenue, however ways she was making money from these postings. And it was due to this confusion that Alyssa created in the marketplace. And so, from a very interesting, not sure where it's going to go. This is novel. Because it's not like, Mickey Mouse, a picture of Mickey Mouse. If you use a picture of Mickey Mouse, then Disney would have come after you. Mickey Mouse is now in the public domain, so I don't know if you've seen a lot of additional use of that, but it is something where it's cut and dry. You use someone's logo, you take their actual video from their site, reuse it without authorization, so on and so forth. This is just the similarity. Interesting case, not sure how it's going to turn out, but I think the interesting part, at least to me as an attorney and an LLC attorney, was that, Sydney Nicole LLC suing Alyssa Shell LLC, but also suing in the individual capacities. So Sydney as an individual is suing Alyssa as an individual. And we think about how can we protect influencers, people who they are the brand, right? They are the same as their brand. They become tied up in it. And like, am I acting in a personal capacity? Am I saying these words as an individual? Or am I saying these words as a representative of the LLC? And there's a distinction there, right? If you're reading off of a cue card, and the cue card was drafted by the LLC, let's assume it's not Alyssa. Let's assume that someone else is the owner of the LLC, and Alyssa is just brought in as a performer, and all that person is doing is reading off of a cue card. It's hard to hold that individual responsible for their words because they didn't say them. I mean, they said the words, but they did not write the words. Those words were not part of their personal views. They're much like it's an actor, not a person who is voicing an opinion. And so it's important for an influencer to create that distinction. Was this content created by the LLC? You've got disclaimers in your social media posts. You have disclaimers on your website. All of the opinions expressed are not those of Alyssa Shiel. They are the opinion of Alyssa Shiel LLC. You've got meeting minutes. You've got processes in place to be able to firmly establish that the individual was not responsible. They were not acting in an individual capacity. And they're really, it's a fine line to dance, but what will be supportive is business records kept in the ordinary course of business. Hopefully, when you've gotten to this level, you're, as these individuals did, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, You have a process. You're creating content. You've got a team. And the team is sitting down and saying, okay, content creation meeting. We are going to create this content. Here's the way we're going to create the videos. Here's where we're going to be pitching. Here's how we're doing our decision making. Memorialize it, put it into the company record. Okay. What that does is it shows that the decisions that were made were business decisions that were just being carried out by Alyssa as a representative of the company. There's something called the business judgment rule. The business judgment rule protects decisions of LLC, the owners, the members, the managers, other people who are working, authorized individuals. It protects them from claims that they should be held personally liable for those business decisions. That's what LLCs are able to do, is they're able to protect individuals from what may be a bad business decision. Maybe Alyssa, and again, I'm not saying this happened, maybe she did have a process where she was repeating everything that Sydney was doing, okay? But it was not Alyssa. It was the team said, boy, Sydney's really killing it. We got to be more like Sydney. And then they had a team meeting and they came up with a decision. And this is how they're going to put the content up and what it's going to look like. That's damaging potentially in this case, but it's positive for the individual because it shows they were not acting in an individual capacity, moved to get the claim against the individual dismissed, and then it will be against the LLC itself. That again is it's still a loss, but it could be a much smaller loss because that claim would be against the LLC if that plaintiff won. If Sydney won, Alyssa's LLC would be on the hook for any damages. But the chance of a veil-piercing event where Alyssa is held personally liable or she has been found to be personally liable would be significantly reduced, potentially eliminated. And we can limit Sydney's potential collection to whatever the assets are of Alyssa's LLC. It's important for social media, people who are influencers, people who are out there speaking on the record or advertising or whatever it is you're doing to make sure that there's a clear distinction about what it is you are representing when you're speaking and on whose behalf you're saying those words. So really interesting case. We're interested in seeing how this turns out. It would be really difficult to be an influencer who, uses someone else for inspiration, uses someone else's post and say, wow, that's a great idea. I'm going to put my own spin on it. You could potentially be held liable for some sort of trademark or copyright or impersonation, whatever it is, whatever the claims are, can be held liable for that. Interesting case. We're going to wait and see how it happens. But having an LLC and great compliance, great company records is something that can absolutely provide you with protection, even in cases strange as this.